Today's talk focuses on the fact that this week we covered the fact that the Daimler CEO questioned whether or not people would buy EVs. And then to follow that on, the head of R&D for Daimler announced that they would no longer be doing research on ICE vehicles and therefore be able to move on to addressing EVs as a primary research element. I wanted to give you guys a quick view here. We're at the Tyson's Corner facility. Behind us is a full complement of vehicles that are in repair. I wanted to note that I can see when you guys say hello, but subsequent viewers have asked we not do hellos to everybody that's on the live feed because it creates other challenges. So, but we will say at the end, hello at the end. And if there's an issue with you hearing me, etc., I'd be happy to respond. So we'll see if this works out. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. We're having a little bit of, we're powered up and getting low battery still. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Also note, I wanted to thank those of you who've subscribed, as well as our Patreon supporters. You all make a huge difference in the success of the channel, and it's much appreciated. If you do like comments from today, we'd appreciate it if you'd at least like the show. So today's concentration is back on Daimler-Benz Mercedes again. What happened is the head of R&D this week announced that they will no longer be doing R&D work on ICE vehicles. And the reason for that is that Daimler has to maintain their dividend, and they're also stuck in a position where they have to keep doing R&D on both ICE vehicles or internal combustion engines, as well as electric vehicles to compete with entities like Tesla. And the drain in terms of resources for both kind of limits the ability of the company to get the job done profitability-wise, etc. So we thought this was a really fascinating area to explore for a number of reasons. The first item that pops up is what are called the 17 parts phenomenon. So if you think about it, clearly Tesla has about 4,000 batteries, whether it's the 3 or the S or X. And then you have to also note that there are 17 parts in engine bay, and then you also have the motors. So we were a little surprised to learn that Daimler was interested in no more R&D on ICE vehicles because there aren't that many parts, number one. Number two, the batteries are coming from LG right now. And we just lost power. Amazing. Amazing. We're completely out of power, Robin. Oh, there we go. We're back. Sorry about that. So the other issue that pops up is the fact that there aren't a lot of moving parts in an electric vehicle engine. So the question that popped up is, what is the issue with Daimler having to switch completely out of ICE and into EV R&D? The one sort of question mark that's popping up is, will Tesla or will Daimler make the effort to actually build sizable EV battery facilities, which they have not done thus far? They've instead chosen to do the same thing as VW and kind of we expect from BMW, which is they've chosen to identify suppliers either from China or Korea and then done a partnership with them that allows them to build those facilities in Germany that would feed the factories of the big three in Germany. The question is, why do this? The answer is the unions are really tough because they have very, very high wages. And if they were under the umbrella of any of those companies, those wages would hit the new companies and therefore make any of the offerings presented not competitive in the marketplace. So we definitely see why it is that there hasn't been an effort to build in-house. And the question is, will this out-of-house build give them the flexibility, et cetera, that they need to be competitive? The answer is a giant ice motorcycle rolling behind me. But we don't know the answer to this question. But to date, it has not been effective. So one of the other things we wanted to, so the answer is right now, they don't have the battery solution at scale to provide something competitive to Tesla. And what all the big three German auto manufacturers can offer is typically a very nice vehicle with a very expensive $40,000 or $50,000 battery. And as we've discussed on numerous occasions, the lower the price of the vehicle overall, the larger the market size that you can penetrate. And so, all the big three are in Germany and in other places are kind of suffering because they're only able to offer short-range vehicles that might be viable. Daimler is particularly having challenges when it comes to dealing with Tesla from a number of angles. The first is that Tesla creates pain because there are a large number of EU authorities that want all of the German and European manufacturers to lower their carbon footprint. So as a result, there are a large number of financial penalties that will hit starting in 2020 and then getting more and more punitive over time, which will result in these companies having to produce EV vehicles and be able to offset some of the very large SUVs, et cetera, they sell against these vehicles that are being built. So we think this is an interesting problem because not only is Daimler suffering in terms of sales of its largest diesel and other cars from Tesla's onslaught, but they also have the problem of they're getting fines for not producing and selling EVs. So this is why we brought up the discussion of the CEO of Daimler pointing out that they're not clear if they actually produce their vehicles, what if consumers do not purchase them? So an example of his comment is the fact that Tesla actually produced a series of electric vans on behalf of Daimler-Benz about 5 years ago. And the vans sold poorly because Tesla only gave them 80 miles of range. So as a result, it was a very low selling vehicle that didn't have a lot of success within the Daimler-Benz zone. The second move that was made recently by Daimler-Benz was there was a switch made on their smart cars. Instead of only having a gasoline-powered engine, they switched completely to electric. And upon doing so, they ended up with almost all of the US dealers, except for 3 or 4, decided not to carry the vehicle. And so the sales were horrible. The concentration was for Daimler dealers or Mercedes-Benz dealers that were focused on very large markets like in New York or Los Angeles, etc., in order to kind of get it done. So basically, Daimler is one of the biggest sort of Tesla victims, if you will, and hence it looks like, based on comments from the CEO, that this won't be changing anytime soon. The other comment that's kind of lurking right now is that the CEO of BMW informed us that one of the issues that's going on is they're not being asked about EVs right now. And one wonders about something called a tipping point. You know, the tipping point that we wanted to discuss here is the fact that what if there's one company that so dominates a space that when consumers think of buying a certain product, they're avoiding completely working with competitors. And so, folks like Mr. Lutz, and the reason I put his name into our title is the fact that what if part of Bob's thesis is a large number of new vehicles would be arriving from major manufacturers around the world. And the question that arises is, what happens if they deliver a large number of these vehicles, but the consumers choose not to purchase them? And now many of these companies producing those vehicles that have punitive penalties for not delivering EVs are making them, can't sell them. Now they're stuck with inventory, plus they're getting fined. So this is an interesting set of issues that are lurking there for the giant manufacturers like Daimler-Benz, BMW, and even in the case of GM, you're still seeing GM paying Tesla because they're not able to meet their EV or EV goals from the Bolt and other vehicles. So this is an appropriate time to actually point out, sorry, Bob, but unfortunately, consumers are not buying vehicles produced by others. And we could actually argue that the reason for this is that it's not only a question of can you produce the vehicle, but consumers want the total system that Tesla has, including ability to supercharge for the cars and supercharger abilities that are rapid, that allow long trips without having to worry about range. So when you look at sort of how well thought out Tesla's system is, it really creates problems for large competitors faced with the challenge of having to face up against Tesla. Now, one of the sort of footnotes that's going on right now that I wanted to move on to, we thought about doing it as a separate show, but we start now and then dive a bit deeper into it. There's an interesting question that's been popping up for many of our viewers, and that question is, what happens when Tesla opens in China? We're just going to have the Chinese stealing large amounts of intellectual property from Tesla and potentially just dumping Tesla and sharing that intellectual property with domestic manufacturers. It's an excellent question. As we put some thought into it, one of the issues that's popping up is Tesla and China have a unique partnership. And that partnership right now is allowing Tesla to have access to the Chinese balance sheet to build out the company. So as we all know, one of the problems for Tesla is that they have a lot of debt and therefore light on cash, and their growth is limited by both of these phenomenons. As China has come in and started basically giving them factories to start producing in and charging after those factories have really been built out, we're now in a situation where there's a potential for Tesla to become huge because they have a deep-pocketed partner in the form of the Chinese government that's eager to support their success. There's also the matter of the fact that the Chinese made an effort when it comes to EVs or trucks, and while they do have a product, the close down of the potential building of a factory in Canada indicates that these vehicles are not really working out that well. Hence, I believe that there's an eagerness by the Chinese to not only get cars, but also look to have Tesla bring over the Semi. So, the next 45 days will be big as the new plant opens and we find out where the batteries are coming from. But all indications are that China truly does want a partnership with Tesla long term, and they will not jam Tesla as they might have in the past, because they really think there's a lot of ways in which they benefit from that partnership that make it a lot more worthwhile to work with a partner like Tesla rather than try to bury them through intellectual stealing and other techniques. And so we think perhaps the biggest example of this is, yes, China generates most of its electricity from coal, but they're trying to move that coal on to renewables. And as they do that, they're also trying to reduce, if you will, their oil footprint, the amount of oil that's being imported. And so even as they move over to electricity for a quarter of the cars is their goal by 2025, that allows them to dramatically reduce their oil consumption as they address the back-end solution of cleaner energy being generated. So I guess stay tuned to this, because thus far the Chinese have been excellent citizens in this regard. I do know that there are a number of you that sent me notes regarding how much intellectual property they steal and other issues with China in that regard. The key to it, though, is we have to remember that the more cars they take off the road and put EVs in their place, I believe that the whole planet benefits from that process, especially as they switch their electricity over to more EVs. So I'm not condoning any intellectual property theft by China or condoning other behaviors that they might make, but I do believe that it's hugely beneficial to have this transition occur, and therefore this transition to benefit the planet in the process. So, at any rate, so this show's focus really was about the fact that there's a large amount of discussion going on in terms of what's going to happen with different companies in this process. And we believe that if in fact China does roll out its balance sheet in the way that they're describing, we're going to end up with an amazing circumstance where Tesla now has access to unlimited capital to grow, and they can keep delivering products, and all those products being delivered increases the amount of market share they have, both domestic in the United States and globally, and makes a huge impact in the process. One of our, Gareth actually made a comment about shorting Ford. I do believe that there are manufacturers that really suffer loss of sales as Tesla increases its growth in sales in every way possible. Speaking of growth in sales, as you've seen right behind me at this facility, all the cars you see are the service repair vehicles for this facility on this side of the building. We kind of went through, and the inside storage is full of new cars, and on the front side we have a number of folks that are sort of test driving the vehicles, etc. So, and the end of the month push, given today's the 21st of September 2019, is on for Tesla, and there's excellent volumes of inventory that are sort of sitting out here, and we're glad to see that production seems to be going well. It'd actually be nicer to see the facility empty of cars after all of them are sold, but that's not the case. But there's a lot of folks taking test drives that are interested in purchasing, and it looks like it's totally buzzing in the space. I actually thought we'd see a lot more Teslas rolling behind us out, but obviously you can see the repair inventory behind me. So today's show was really sort of focused on the fact that Bob Lutz really indicated that as the major ICE manufacturers get rolling, Tesla would get mashed by all the new vehicles being delivered by competing firms. We've obviously seen that this has not been the case, and in fact what's happening right now is, as China comes to bear with new production, it's our conclusion that we're going to see some huge numbers coming out of Tesla as they're able to add the new manufacturing in China, and the result will be some record-breaking sales to go with it. Wanted to note here that we did our outside location again today. We do like to do the outdoors, and it does affect sound, so we definitely appreciate your indulgence. Wanted to remind you to take time to like and subscribe if possible. Some support on Tesla on Patreon would be appreciated if you can. Also, I wanted to thank Donovan and some of our other friends for sharing via our Facebook page photos and other things coming in from Europe that we may not have seen going on here. So, a lot happening for Tesla. We think there's a lot of good reasons why the stock should do well, especially as it's clear how batteries, etc., will be handled in China. I wanted to thank Donovan, Jerry, Gareth. I could see a number of you out there. Appreciate your saying hello and joining us live. Just a reminder, bacon twice a year if possible, 25 legless per leg to make sure you have stronger knees to go with the health plan. Remember to don't eat within 4 hours of eating preferably, but 2 hours at least, letting the food digest so you don't get acid indigestion in the process, which could cause other problems. And again, we look forward to our next chat with you guys. Thanks for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German. Hedge du, Swedish. Thanks to Donovan. Ni hao ma, Chinese. Lahit Rot, Hebrew. Hoda Hafez, Farsi. Zdravstvuyte, Russian. Look forward to all of your comments and inputs are greatly appreciated. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, mach's gut. In Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk woodman. Have a great day and bye for now.